Anouk, wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm super excited to be here.
It's fantastic to talk to someone who focuses on money, money mindset, personal investments, and especially for women, because I know that it's a topic many women struggle with, and it's also very taboo for many women. I'm curious to know what's the number one mistake that you see when it comes to personal investments?
Um, I would say actually not starting and being scared of starting. That's the biggest one. Like really, and I understand it because I've been there. Like it's taken me a long time to get started myself. But that really like letting your fear stop you from actually learning about it and making more of your money. I think that's like the biggest mistake you can make. I would say.
That's probably the case in many things. And it includes also money, but the fact that we don't dare to start, we don't dare to start our own business, we don't dare to start this new hobby because we think we won't be good. We don't dare to begin and learning a new language. So I think that's quite a common pattern sometimes is this blockage. So how do you support people and women, I know specifically, to begin their journey, to start their journey with investing?
So we look at first actually talking more about money in general and the mindset and kind of like the limiting beliefs we have around money, which has a lot to do with also our upbringing and the experiences we've made in the past related to money. Like it's such a taboo topic that a lot of times we don't talk about it at all. And that's kind of like where the block comes from and where the fear around money comes from. But then when we don't talk about it, we don't actually learn how to manage it well, and we don't learn how to make the most of it. So the first thing is really starting to actually talk about it and break this taboo and start to make the conversation around money much more comfortable, to then build up the confidence and just the like self confidence and trust as well to then take action and start to make more with more of your money. And then we look into, I mean, there's different aspects, right? But we want to look at obviously your goals, like what would be the reason for you to start investing. You need to, for you to be able to do it and for you to actually stick with it. And that's also the same with anything in life. You need to have a why, like you need to understand why you're actually doing what you're doing. So really going deep in that and understanding, okay, what's the reason behind investing? And there are obviously some reasons that you have to start investing. Like one example is inflation. Like you don't want to lose value, right? Like when you work, you put your money in your bank account, is losing value the day it just stays in your bank account. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason would be to secure your retirement. That's something that all of us have to do. We have to take care of our own retirement. So that would be a reason that is almost like forced on to us. But then there are also personal reasons. So if, for example, my client would tell me, I want to have more freedom in the future, or I want to be able to retire earlier, or want to have time to spend more time with my family, those are all good reasons to actually start investing and make the most of your money and to start to learn how to manage your money effectively so that you can actually buy yourself more freedom in the future. So those would be the starting points, and then we look into what we can do, to start investing and actually start investing in a way that doesn't require a lot of time. So my focus is already on passive investing, simply because it's the most efficient way to invest in the most time saving way, and also statistically speaking one of the most successful ways actually, when it comes to not losing money and making the most of your money. So those are kind of like the things that we would be looking at, to get started.
You mentioned a lot of core points here around the money mindset and beliefs, but also the importance of having a strong why and also finding a system that actually saves you time and doesn't consume all of your time. When it comes to some of the beliefs that you see, what are some of the most limiting beliefs that just show up again and again when you work with your clients?
So I would say one is definitely this belief of like, well, there's different ones, but yeah, one would be believing that I'm just not good with money. So it's just something that I just can't do it. Like it's just not for me. And that is really just the limiting belief, because we can all learn to be good with money. We can all, there is actually not no being good or being bad with money. It's all just learning how to do it, and then changing ways or changing things that you do right now. Another one, when especially focused on investing, would be something like, I need to have a lot of money to start investing. Like I'm not rich enough to be an investor, basically. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because actually the reason you start investing is because you want to grow your wealth. And you don't need to have the wealth when you start investing. You just need to start with small amounts, and then you can increase those amounts over time. So really understanding that, yeah, you don't need to have a lot of money to start. It really starts with small amounts already. Another one is, I don't have the time. That's also, I hear this all the time. Like, I don't have enough time to take care of this. I don't have enough time to learn. It's this thing of like, I know I should be doing it, but I just don't have the time. Or and then it's a bit about priorities, obviously. Like, you have to obviously decide, and you have to spend some time to learn it. So it has to become a priority for some period of time. But then moving forward, it's not something that you have to actively manage consistently. So it's not something that takes a lot of your time. And as I said before, it actually gives you back time. So it's super important to, or like, it's really valuable to actually see this and understand it, and then take the time to learn it, to then buy yourself back time. I'm just thinking, what else was there? Like, a lot of the beliefs, well, also around, especially for women, it's like, that's for the man to do. It's like a man's thing. I will leave this to my husband. I will leave this to my partner. It's Yeah, they're more suited. I'm not good enough with numbers. I'm not good with math. Like, all of these kind of like beliefs around, I'm not good enough to do this myself. Like, someone else should do it for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I focus on women, actually, because I really want to break this belief, like this feeling of not being good enough to take care of your own money. And that comes from, you, like, it's understandable, because women don't have, like, it's not been a long time that we actually have our own bank accounts, can manage our money, earn money ourselves. So it's not been super long that we actually learned how to do this. And it's understandable that that's why we feel a bit limited at it, or maybe, yeah, like, unsure about how to do it. But as with anything, we can learn it. And it's really like, I want to empower more women to understand that actually you can learn this yourself, you can do it yourself. It's just like anything else that you've learned in life. Like, it seems like this very dangerous and big thing, but once you tackle it, and once you start diving into it, actually it becomes super exciting, at least for me. So yeah, those are kind of like the ones that came up now.
Those are definitely some beliefs that I have seen, and I can totally imagine, especially this idea of some people who think they're not good with money or with numbers. That's a very common belief. And also this idea of maybe not wanting to take that responsibility and give it to the man. I will confess that my husband does most of the finances, but we do review it together. But I
Yeah.
think it's very important, especially as a business owner, to have a space that you create where you review the numbers and you think about it and you know what's going on in the business. And that's definitely fundamental. I'm curious also, when you say, when it comes to beliefs and conceptions, how do you help women, especially, to feel that they're good enough to handle money and that they can learn it? How do you help them shift this belief?
I love that question. So what I like to do is actually to look at, not like moving away from money, and looking at other things that they have done before, where they felt like this is something they can't do, and they've overcome that hurdle. And with money, it's the same thing. So it's just like, really going in back and kind of looking at what has happened in your life, what have you done in your life, which hurdles have you overcome, or which new things have you learned, and how did you do that. And then obviously, doing anything you learn is going to be a different way of learning it, right? But the concept itself is the same, in understanding that there's things that you might be scared of right now, but then when you get through the fear, and when you kind of like come out on the other side, usually there's just so much more that awaits for you on that other side. And usually there's just growth, and that's kind of, you have to go through this at some point to get to the other side. So yeah, looking into that as well. Also really thinking about, or like questioning, looking at like your upbringing, because a lot of the times, like I said in the beginning as well, how we feel about money and how we treat money and the thoughts we have around money and kind of like the misconceptions we have around money, they are usually shaped within the first and 7 year of life, right? So looking back at like, okay, what are the stories that you've heard at home? Like, what were the things that you've heard people say about money around you, and how does this now affect you and your life right now? So how do you behave? Does it like, is it maybe coming from that? Like, do you feel the same way just because this is something you've heard over and over again growing up? And then starting to rewrite the story. So understanding that you can actually shift things in your brain by simply like, your subconscious can be reprogrammed, right? And can be reprogrammed by kind of like priming it with new beliefs and new thoughts all the time. So just understanding, okay, what are you thinking right now, and how can we shift this? Like, what would you like to think instead, and how can you, yeah, program this into your mind and do this consistently through repetition to then change your behavior around money as well. Because in a way, it's just this understanding that you have your thoughts, and your thoughts kind of like, they shape your beliefs, and then those beliefs create actions. So you have to go and look at, okay, what is it that you're thinking, and how does that impact what you're doing, and how can you change that? So yeah, like there's a lot a lot of work around that that happens when it comes to money as well.
It all starts with the thoughts, right? Thoughts to the emotions to the actions to the outcomes. And I think it's such a good practice to look at what are the results we're getting in our life and in our business and try and trace it back to the thoughts. And it's something that, unless we're a coach and we're doing this as our work, or we're a personal development junkie, we don't learn this. We don't learn to look at some of the outcomes in our business or career or lifestyle or health and think back, what are the initial thoughts? And there's a lot, especially with women, but also men, a lot of thoughts around worthiness. Am I worthy? And often that has an impact on people's relationships and health and financial situations. And that's a tough one to build up. This idea of, I'm whole, I'm worthy as I am. It's not something that comes naturally unless you do some form of inner work. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying which I find super powerful, which is like, your net worth, your self-worth determines your net worth. Basically meaning that how you feel about yourself and how you see yourself and how you value yourself directly reflects your bank account or your net worth in a way. And that's because when you don't value yourself, like when you don't feel worthy of something, you're not going to go out and negotiate your salary. You're not going to go out and raise your prices or ask for more money. You will do work for free because you feel like you have to prove something. So all of this then reflects directly actually in your bank account and in your net worth as a result. So yeah, definitely, like it goes, it's not just the work around money, but it's actually really the work around you and how you see yourself, and that reflects everything and that impacts everything.
All starts with our own psychology.
Yeah.
That's why I love self leadership. It all begins with the way we think and act and behave. Another thing that I often see and have experienced myself as a business owner, but also with the entrepreneurs I coach, is falling into this scarcity mindset when we believe there isn't enough of anything and everything is lacking, and we're focused on what is missing and not on what could be. And what's interesting, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but what's interesting is that sometimes the person is in an objective way in a financially abundant situation, but feels scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
maybe fear of losing it. And sometimes people are in a less financially abundant situation, objectively speaking, but they have that inner resourcefulness, that joy, that abundance, and they can project and visualize that things will pick up so they can be in this abundance mindset. So I think sometimes we confuse to be in scarcity and abundance with the actual numbers, but again, it's a lot more a mindset
Mm-hmm.
trait, a mindset perspective. So how do you help people to shift from this scarcity to this abundance mindset?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's super like on point what you just said, and I know because I come from a more scarcity mindset basically. Even when I haven't had, like, I would earn good money, I would start investing already, I would still have that. It was like it almost came up like the more money I accumulated, the more I was scared to lose it. So the more I was holding on to it, and that's really kind of like goes back to feeling like you need to be in control. You don't want to let go of control. You feel like there's still a level of fear. So it's not fully trusting that you're building up the money and your money is going to work and you live life. It's just like you have that money, you build that safety, and now you need even more safety. And it kind of like, so I totally, yeah, know what it feels like. And I would say it's a journey. Like, it's not something that happens overnight. It's something where the first part is really understanding the difference between abundance and scarcity, and also how what I just said now, like it doesn't mean just because you have a lot of money, like there's 6 7 figure business owners who feel scarcity, right? And then there are people who live in a lot less, or like, yeah, a lot less privileged conditions, and they don't feel that at all. So it's not about the numbers, like you said. It's much more the feeling, and it goes back to like you see how you see yourself, how safe you feel within yourself, you how sure you are as well. A little bit like what I noticed with myself is also a bit of this feeling of like, how sure are you that you have your own back in a way, like no matter what happens you can support yourself, right, somehow. And this level of fear comes from, if you don't have that, like if you feel like there's something that is unstable, that's when the fear comes in, and that's when you feel like, okay, you need to hold on to your money much more, because you like there's this level of lack that might come. But basically just, yeah, kind of first having that understanding that there is the difference between abundance and scarcity. Same again, rewiring your brain, like it's the same process in a way, because you need to start to think, like you need to become aware of the thoughts that you have, like the things you tell yourself, the things that keep coming up, the negative self-talk, and then starting to shift it and kind of choosing the opposite, like choosing something positive instead. Also what really helped me is to kind of see almost like what's the worst that could happen, in a way, like what am I holding on to actually right now, like why am I holding on to this, and what would be the worst that could happen. And in the end of the day it's usually not that bad actually. So it's kind of like, yeah, just generally becoming aware of everything and then starting to shift slowly. But like I said, it's a process, and I feel like in general, and that's, I think, with any self-development work, it's not something where you wake up one morning and suddenly it's shifted. It's just like, it's a process, right? Like it's a continuous process. You go through it over and over. No matter how much work you've done, there's going to be small little triggers that can come up here and there. You just become more aware of them, and you then can have the tools to then change those triggers and change those things and change those thoughts basically.
I particularly resonate with what you said around feeling the safety within you and safety about the situation and maybe safety about the future. Because I noticed quite ironically this year that the month where I felt the most into scarcity, that was linked to different circumstances and conversations, was actually by far the month I earned the most money. And
Mm.
so I was in this place of deep scarcity and really strong fear. And then I was actually looking at the numbers and I was like, but Katie, you do realize that was your biggest month this year by far, like 4 times probably what I earned the other months. And I was like, this is weird.
Mm.
This is a bit strange to be in this place of strong fear and strong scarcity. But what it was is a feeling of inner safety and a feeling of trust in
Mhm.
yourself, trust in the process, trust in the business, trust in life. And
Mhm.
when you lose that, it's almost like no amount of money, and it sounds absurd, right? But it's almost like no amount of money can give that to you, because if you don't have that inner trust in yourself, in life, in your business, you think it might all just go anyway. Or
Mhm.
if you don't earn, then in the next, 3, 4 months, then everything would fall apart. But that's
Mhm.
always the case. But
Yeah.
if you're in a place of safety and inner strength, you don't see the catastrophe scenarios all the time. So
Mhm.
it was a very interesting insight, and being able to reconnect with that place of safety, both in moments where things do go well, like that month
Mhm.
went well, but also in months that are more challenging, I think is a journey and a process,
Yeah.
especially as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like when it comes to, I mean, it's good to trust in yourself, but then I've also seen the other extreme, right? Like I've seen the extreme of living fully in abundance and manifesting and just trusting fully on that. And then I'm like, I think that's maybe where my logical mind comes in. But then I'm like, you still need to do the steps, you still need to invest for your future and do all the things, even if you manifest all the amounts of money that come into your world and that all goes well, like you still want to be able to do a bit of both. So it's like, I feel like, yes, having fully the trust in yourself and everything, 100%, but that shouldn't discard still taking the steps to kind of like, yeah, make sure that you have everything in place to kind of like support yourself in the future.
Yes, the trust gives the aligned actions, I feel. So when you have that trust in yourself and in the future and in the business, from that place of trust,
Mhm.
you then take the aligned actions. It's
Yeah.
not from that place of trust you just stay passive, but it's taking aligned actions. Whereas I feel that when we're in fear, we take actions, but they're not always aligned. We just do a ton of stuff, hoping something will work out somehow in a sort of panic frenzy. And
Yeah.
that's hardly very productive, and that doesn't yield the best results from what I see. So if someone listening here and thinking they want to start a bit their investment journey and be a bit more responsible around their money, what would be 2, 3 habits you think they could put in place to begin this journey?
So when it comes to money, the first one is always tracking your expenses, as boring as it sounds, but it's really, and that's like on a personal and business level. So if you're in business, if you have your own business, then separate that. Like obviously you want to have two bank accounts, right? One is for your personal, one is for your business, which most should have ideally, but I'm just mentioning it because I've also seen that it's not always the case. And then yeah, tracking your expenses on both sides. Um, Setting your goals, like understanding, again, it goes back to the why, but really understanding, okay, what is it that you want to do in the long term? Where do you want to go long term financially, midterm and short term? And then start allocating your money accordingly so that you can start actually creating a plan to reach those goals and not just wing it with your money, basically. One thing that made the biggest difference for me personally, and that's a concept called pay yourself first, is to really like save and invest at the beginning of the month. So you automatically move money into your investments and your savings at the beginning of the month, and then you spend whatever you want to spend afterwards, but not waiting until the end of the month and saving and investing whatever is left. Because then, first, it's harder to reach your goals because you don't always invest and save the same amount. You don't really have a strategy or plan in place. You're just winging it. And then there might be months where you have nothing left at the end of the month and then you've actually not saved. And then you tell yourself you'll do it next month. And then the same happens again. So that's why it's really good to shift, kind of like doing that in the beginning. And when it comes to investing, I always advise to everyone just starting with index funds, simply because that's really the most kind of like efficient way of doing it. And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's basically investing in the stock market, but rather than having to pick one single company, you invest in a bucket of companies at the same time. And that's how you automatically reduce your risk. Yeah, and statistically speaking, it's also performed better than actually trying to find that one needle in the haystack that might perform well. So that would be my approach. And that's also the approach that I go through with my clients when we work together.
Fantastic. And just to finish on a last note, if some people have these initial fears and these blockages, a limiting belief, scarcity mindset, like we discussed, what could be one thought, one quote, one piece of insight that they can take and put in place to help them to take that leap and overcome that fear?
So I feel like there's so many different ones because it depends. Is it fear about money? Is it fear about investing? Is it fear about like,
Let's say just the fear of taking that responsibility and rewiring their relationship with money so that they can start to invest. Just, that shift of identity, building up again and shifting their whole relationship with money.
What I like to say, or what I like to think, or what I would love to encourage people to do is to think of what happens if you don't do it, right? It's almost like the opposite. So, yes, it's scary, right? But what's the alternative? Almost, right? And in most cases, the alternative is that you get stuck in the same place that you're in right now, where you're not 100% where you want to be. So, yeah, just going back to that and then taking one small step at a time. And that can be even just listening, I don't know, to one podcast, for example, to start digging into that topic. But you don't have to do everything all at once, but just starting slowly, like one step at a time. You can start following me and reading my content, but like, anything that you can do, small steps that you can do that will basically start or bring you closer to the topic and closer towards, yeah, just taking more ownership about your money or around your money, I would say.
Yes, definitely taking ownership in general, but different categories in our life, whether it's our health, our business, our relationships, or our money, is extremely powerful. Anouk, thank you so much. This has been jam packed with so many fantastic pieces of insight, everything from the mindset perspective, but also the practicalities about investing. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie.